Dream. Dream.
And this week we are going to be talking about Yoongles slash Yoongi slash Lil Meow Meow slash Min PD slash Sugar slash Augusty slash every other nickname in the world because they all apply to him.
I wonder if he knows about these
I
nicknames.
I have wondered as well if
Because
he
the thing
knows
is,
like
is I know like we talk about it a lot on English, the English side of Stan Twitter, but
mhm.
I don't know if he goes there, and I also don't know if they have different nicknames for him in other languages as well, or if K armies have nicknames for him. So I'd love to find that out.
Yeah, I've always been intrigued by like the differences between inside jokes of like the I Army side of Twitter and the K side of Twitter, and like whether they know some of our inside jokes about them that or if they just know the K side, or because of course they snoop around on Twitter. Like, let's be real
Mm-hmm.
here. Of course they snoop around on
Yes.
Twitter. They see our tweets, like they see our jokes, they know about it. They can't tweet
Mm-hmm.
about it themselves, but of course they do. Like, if I was them, I would be on Stan Twitter all the fucking time,
Yeah.
like without fail.
Granted though, you have to be careful about that, right? Because you could be
Oh yeah.
having like a nice fun swipe through all these good posts, thirsty
Hmm.
posts, like loving posts, and then you see something negative.
Yeah.
And like that could just ruin your mood and just hit you
Hmm.
in a way that you don't want. And obviously as artists, they're very sensitive as they should be.
Hmm.
Um,
Yeah. And I mean, I
so
think probably some of them are less likely to do that type of thing because they don't want to see the bad comments than others. But I mean, we all know how much hate they see online because
mhm.
they've talked about it in many times. And yeah, it sucks,
Yeah.
honestly.
I mean, that's why everybody always jokes that they probably have Stan accounts though, because then you could just
Yeah,
follow a bunch of people that will only give you positive stuff, and then you're insulated from all the negative stuff.
that is true. Yeah. Hmm. But
Anyway,
anyway, we
though,
should
we
have
just went
brought
on
up
a
our
tangent.
tangent. Yeah.
I'm afraid of changing the screen any more than I have to in case everything breaks again.
Yeah, fair. Okay, so we will be talking about Yoongi, and ugh, I just love him so much. Like he makes me so soft. I just can't.
I want to hug
Yeah.
him. Actually, I want to hold his hand.
Oh my God, I want to hold his hand so bad.
Every time I look at him, I think of the Beatles song, like, I want to hold your hand.
Oh, like you know the way on the James Corden show how James Corden like held his hand and then put his other hand on top of his hand. That's what I
Yes.
want to do, and I want to do that forever and never use
I'm
my hands for
s-
anything else again.
I'm so jealous of James Corden for being able to do
I
that.
know. And did
I
you his little face? He looked so happy.
I was watching that as it aired, and I was just screaming. I was like, he held his hand! And same thing for Tay. Tay's hand also
Oh,
got held, and he was just led away, and he was like, okay, off I go.
oh, did you hear his little like squeal of excitement? It was so adorable.
Yes. We're
But
on a tangent again. We didn't get
we are.
anywhere.
But I just need to say this.
Go for it.
Um, I love how Tae and Yoongi always hold hands now to resolve their conflicts. It's so sweet. And like in the winter package where they were just sitting at the back of the bus holding each other's hands when they were on their way to their like tour around the city that they were doing.
I didn't notice that. I'm gonna have to go rewatch that.
I'm gonna send you so many things tonight because that was like the cutest scene. It was my favorite scene from the whole of Winter Package.
I liked when they this is a tangent again, but I liked when they like finally got a chance to be outside in the city all together, and they were just like in that like empty square under the lights, and they were just, it was beautiful, and they were also just like screwing around, and it just, I just loved it because you could feel the camaraderie where they were just like, woohoo, we're finally outside and it's not raining, this is a pretty city, and they were just doing nothing.
Yeah, it was so great.
I'm like, that's what I would do with my friends, and that's what I
Yeah.
have done, and I'm like, I could be their friend. I
Oh
just
yeah,
want to be all their friend.
do you ever just sit there and think about like how good friends you would be if you were friends with BTS and like how much you would get on and like we'll do this another day where we talk about what we would do if we had a day to spend with each member. That'd be fun.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah, that's in our
Yeah,
banks of things that we can do in the fun time section.
it is. Okay,
All
so
right, so
going
back to Yoongi again. Do you want to start us out?
Okay, so I think we should probably do this just by like bringing up a point and then just talking about it. So
Okay.
I just noted down some of my like favorite things about him, things I admire about him, things I like about him. And so the first point that I had is that I admire him so much because of the sacrifices that he made to follow his dreams. And like when you really think about it, like he took so many risks and he like was working part-time whilst following this career path, and like he decided to be in the front in the actual group rather than just being a songwriter or a producer. So he became an idol when he was initially into the pop scene, and like he had his shoulder accident and he continued like training and doing all of these things. And I just think that like he's able to just do whatever it takes to follow his dreams and to do music. And I actually went back and listened to August D when I was researching for him. And in one of the songs, he's talking a lot about how he just wanted to make money at that point because that was all he could think about. And he wanted to be number one and he wanted to be at the top. And I just really respect how much it was just everything. He was giving it everything he had, no matter what he had to change, no matter what he had to give up, no matter how hard he had to work. Like he was saying, I would go to school and I would just fall asleep because I'd been working and then I'd been practicing and then I'd have to go to school. And yeah, so that's my first point.
Yeah. That's a very good point to bring up because that was my first point as well. I went back and I watched a bunch of like his old interviews and vlogs where he just talked about like his own history. And the thing that I just got from all of that was that he's used he knew what the hustle was and he just did it. Like he was a very, and still is, a very scrappy person. Where, you know, like, I listened to him talk about how, like, he knew early on that he wanted to pursue music because he thought he was an average student and he wouldn't, you know, like, get high enough scores to become, like, a big civilian worker or businessman the way his parents wanted, right? You know, like, that is supposedly, like, the Korean parents' dream that your children study hard, get good grades, get good exam scores, and then go to the best university there is, and then actually land a job, a cushy job as a civilian worker. And you know the thing is Yoongi was just very honest with himself. He's like, I don't have a high likelihood of doing that, Plus, I just like to make music.
Yeah.
And so he ignored his parents and started to make music and try to sell it. And he just never had enough money. He couldn't make enough money between like the infamous story of him not having enough money to eat and take the bus.
Yeah.
And he would always get ripped off for his music. Like, he'd make it and send it to people and they wouldn't pay him for it.
Just to talk about one of the August D songs that I was listening to, it's one of my favorite parts is when he says that he's going to school and people are talking about how they spent 7 times his his budget that he had to live on alcohol alone, and then were complaining about how they had no money, and he's just like, shut the fuck up. And that is relatable.
It is. And it's just like, you can just, I think that he, out of all of them, he communicates the best through his music. Like, he may not be good at expressing himself in person. He's a very usually introspective and reticent person, but when it comes to his lyrics and his music, he spends time to communicate the way he wants to, and that's why you find out so much about him through his music, through his mixtape, like you're just talking about. And through all of that, I just get this like sense of inner rage at like all of this injustice and unfairness that he grew up seeing and dealing with. And you know,
and I think it's very much a product of his environment, and it's very normal for somebody in that position to just be so angry. And like, again, I'm talking about it because I listened to it today, but he says in his lyrics, like, the world's not fair, it's just not fair, and I get angry about it, basically. Like, I feel like he is able to just take all of those feelings that are just building inside of him and just put it in his music, and that's why it just hits you so hard, because it's his soul. Like, it's everything he wants to say and how much he's experienced and how much he hates all of the things that he thinks are wrong about the world.
And I agree with that completely. I think his outlet, has always been music, and maybe it wasn't supposed to be along the way, but like, ooh, nice color there.
Ooh, yeah.
Sorry, I'm distracted by this Yoongi slideshow.
Yeah, it's great. Oh, look at the gummy smile. So
what was I saying? I think because of all of the hardships that he went through, he's very protective of other people who are going through it with him. And I'm speaking from, like, I have 3 examples of this. One being that, so like from what I watched through of his interviews, you know, he talked about how he tried for a long time to make it musically in Daegu, where he had his crew, or his underground hip hop group, Daegu Town, and he was just trying so hard to become successful there, and it wasn't working, and that's why he came to Seoul, and his intentions had been to be a producer. And so that's why he did all these rap battles and auditions trying to prove himself musically so that he could be taken on as a producer. And then somehow, you know, Big Hits, you know, he stumbled upon Big Hit, and, you know, they said, why don't you be part of this group? It'll be a hip hop group. No dancing.
No dancing.
Yeah, and he's like, sure. And then along the way, the concept changed, and he became more of the idol model of doing things. And I watched this one interview where he's just like, I used to think, like, you know, just have like, okay, being an idol is being an idol, and only after doing it did I realize how hard it was. And it's and he even compared it to the struggles he had in Daegu, and he's like, this is so much harder. And I think that those kinds of comments was him and he just said, like, I can't imagine how all these other idols do it. And I'm like, he defends people who are misunderstood. Another example.
Sorry, I wanted to just add an example whilst it's on my mind.
Go for it.
I have 2, but I'll make them really quick. The first one is when he talks about ARMY, and when he says,
literally was about to say that at the UN, like the UN.
Oh, really? Yeah. Okay, you explain it.
Yeah, where they're all sitting at the table, like preparing to go to the UN, and he's just like, it is not easy to be a fan of idols, to be a fan of K-pop. You get ridiculed, like these people get ridiculed all the time for simply liking something. How are you supposed to overcome that? You know, like we're not allowed to just be. Everybody wants to make fun of us.
Yeah, it's true.
And you saw how much that meant to everyone, that like
Oh,
that he
yeah.
acknowledged that he understands that this happens, and he admires the fact that we like them and support them anyway. That was
Because
big.
that's not something that ever gets talked about by the artists themselves. And it was just so touching that he brought that up, that he is aware of the hardships that we face, like, and he's supportive of that, and he defends everybody. Like, he's just like, oh, you feel misunderstood, and the world isn't treating you right. Well, I've got something to say about that.
Yeah, and then the other point, which I'm sure you're about to make as well, is that he uses his platform to talk about his mental health struggles. And he's literally said,
and not just that. It's not just that. Like, it's not just mental health, but it's just a wide variety of issues and feelings. And so, like, he talks about. I'm trying to find where I've written this down, because I had, like, his mental health, the struggles of being famous, like having hopes and dreams, and like things like that, and people who are hateful, and like the underground hip hop scene. Like, he just is able to just talk about things with no filter.
Yeah. And the thing is I don't know if it's filter. So when I mentioned before about him realizing that he's like, I'm not going to do well in school, and I'm not going to have a high likelihood of being successful in the traditional route, I think that was him being just honest with himself. And I think that is a very difficult thing to do, because we all want to see ourselves in the best light possible, and don't like to admit when we have weaknesses or flaws. And the fact that from the beginning he could just be very real with himself and say, this is who I am and this is what I have, also applies to how he makes music, right? Because we talked about how the music he makes is very raw, it's very honest, it's very sincere, and it tugs at you emotionally, because he's confronting himself and expressing things that for most of us, even by ourselves, we don't like to think about. We don't want to accept as a real thing.
I want to give a couple of examples of that I can think of off the top of my head. And so the first, I was talking about Yoongi with a lovely ARMY who messaged me, and I mentioned to her that one of my all-time favorite quotes from Yoongi is, moss surely grows on a stone that doesn't roll. And then, like, it goes on to say things like, if you think you're going to crash, then accelerate more, you idiot. Like, it's from Nevermind, which is one of my favorite songs of his. And the reason I love that so much is because, like, it's what I need sometimes to be like, right, you're feeling unhappy, okay, but what are you doing about it? You're sitting there and you're moping and you're not doing anything. So you're actually making yourself even more unhappy, and then you're blaming everything else. So take a look at yourself and realize that it's actually you who's causing this. Get yourself together and just try again and keep going. And that type of tough love is so needed sometimes. Like, for me, definitely. And I literally have that quote written on like a letter that I read, because I have a letter to myself when I'm feeling like just really defeated, and I just read it, and it like gets me back to being motivated again.
Which quote?
Moss surely grows on a stone that doesn't roll.
I love it.
Yeah.
I love it.
It's just, and he does the same thing with like Shadow, for example, like when he's having that conversation with himself, and it's like, didn't you want this? You wanted all this. Why are you moaning about it? Like, you have to accept it. Just deal with it. Like, I really like that way of looking at things. And he's not only like that because he's very compassionate and like patient and understanding at the same time. But I think you need both.
I agree. And I think I love, I mean, so many times his manner gets misconstrued as he's just savage. And it's like, yeah,
Yes.
he is, you can say, yeah, he's savage, but he's savage with a purpose. Like,
Mhm.
he likes to be blunt and be honest with himself and with
Mhm.
others. And it's like,
There's
and he also,
no putting a pretty ribbon on it to help people's feelings because sometimes that is just the last thing you need.
yeah, yeah, and I think that's exactly how he thinks.
Hmm.
And I also like that that's also how he jokes. Like a lot of the time his jokes are just very blunt, like
Hmm.
or he's not afraid to be in the background of like one of their, Bang 10 bombs or whatever, just being unimpressed with whatever's going on. And you're
When he's
like,
drinking
yeah.
wine, when the rest of them are playing by the pool and he's just in the background with a glass of wine, like, I
Yeah,
don't care.
or just he's like, I'm gonna watch you from afar. You go be an idiot. I'm just gonna be
Mhm.
here.
Or it's like in, you haven't watched it yet, but I didn't pick up on it on the first time, so I don't think it will be a spoiler. But when they're rehearsing for the MMA on the recent episode, the rest of the members are like talking and joking around, and you just see him in the corner on his phone, like a bit far away from everybody else.
I
Oh.
love that honesty because it's very hard. Like if you're a person who, you're in a social setting and you're just like, I'm tired, I need to go recharge my batteries. It's kind of hard to excuse yourself from everyone to do that because it just comes across as rude. And in the background, Yoongi doesn't care. He's just like,
Yeah.
I need this break.
Hmm. And I think with him, what makes it what makes him like that is just his experience. And he said before, it was in a jokey way, but he said something along the lines of, "Oh, I just know how to live in this cruel world." And it very much is that. Like when you experience things, sometimes the way you go about dealing with it is just like, I just know how things are. I know what the reality is. There's no time to just beat around the bush. Let's just take it for what it is. Like he has no rose-tinted glasses on when it comes to anything.
Yeah. And I think that is incredibly just brave, and
Hmm.
also it just speaks to his strength of character, and I very much admire it. I also very
I
much
do as
relate to
well.
it because I tend to be
So do
very
I.
blunt.
Mhm.
um,
I mean, yeah, I think it's very relatable. And again, like this is often misconstrued as just savage for being savage, whereas it's not that.
no,
I think there's a lot more meaning to his savagery. I think he is savage as hell, and I love it. But there's always meaning for his savagery.
yes, he doesn't do it just to be mean. He does it to prove a point.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly. And like in whether he's calling out like other idols, whether he's calling out the hip hop like community, whether he's calling out haters, whether he's calling out like people's attitudes towards mental health, blah 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 blah. I could go on. Like he's always doing it for a purpose because he doesn't think it's fair and he wants that to change and sometimes he just wants to prove a point, which is great.
Yeah, or he just wants to be funny, and his
Yeah.
comedic timing is always really good.
You know, the thing about Yoongi is he has such British humor. Like,
Oh,
honestly,
really?
our favorite form of humor here is sarcasm, witty comments, and just like being like the one that it makes me think of is when JK and Jim, and I think it is, are like, "Oh, is that a real camel?" And he's like, "Does that look like a human to you?" Like that is so British. Like we do that so much, and it's one of my favorite brands of humor. So I find him hilarious.
Yeah, yeah, I agree. I think that's really. I didn't. You're right. That is British humor, from what I
Hmm.
know. That's awesome,
Just
though.
yeah, I love it. So one thing I wanted to go into from this point itself is his vulnerability and his inspirational side. So like I think they're two sides of the same coin. Like we have him delivering his messages in a blunt and honest way, but I also think he has like and really, he's a nurturer. I feel like he nurtures those around him as well as, so like he has both sides, whereas on one side it's
Mm-hmm.
like the sharp end of the knife, but then on the other it's the blunt end, and it's the I'm just going to comfort and heal you kind of side.
With the handle of the knife.
Exactly.
Very comforting.
um,
No, I agree completely. I
mhm.
just wanted to say, I think because of all the hardships he's had and all the difficult things that he's struggled through, he has a lot of empathy for people who are
Yes.
going through that kind of thing. And because he himself felt that it was unfair and that he couldn't be heard when he was in the middle of all of those things, he wants to give a voice to people who are still in that right now. And
Yeah.
I would characterize his the way he loves is in this very quiet, fierce way. And
Hmm.
he's not he doesn't like to say I love you apparently. I don't know if that's changed recently, but he's always been very like reticent to say it.
Yeah.
Um but and I think maybe it's partially because maybe his struggles have made him more guarded with his expressions, more
Hmm.
private about his pain and his feelings. Um, so, but
I
just the
think
way
the
he
way
is.
I think the way he sees it is that like I can say anything to you that I want. It doesn't mean anything. What's going to prove it is my actions. So like you you can say all you want to somebody to their face, but you can mean the complete opposite in your brain. Your actions are what determine how you feel about somebody. So rather than like feeling the need to express love in words, it's more with his little actions.
So his love language is doing things.
Yeah, I would say so. And just things like cooking for people or, you know, giving somebody advice on something or always being there to help
Mm-hmm.
with something or just things like that. Like I feel like he's the type of person who if you had an argument with, he wouldn't apologize. He would just buy your favorite takeaway and come and knock on your door. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
Hmm.
I'd hope
And
he
then
would
like it would just be
apologize.
forgotten. No, I don't think he would. Like I feel like his way of apologizing would be, okay, I'm gonna come and I'm gonna like give you something nice and you'll know I'm apologizing without me having to apologize.
Aww. And then
That's
he'd probably ask to hold your hand.
yes. Yeah.
Let me. Something else.
So just
You can
quickly
go.
about his vulnerability,
Yeah.
was just how his V lives and his interactions with armies always tend to be him just giving advice and trying to comfort everybody and like answering people's questions and like they always somehow turn into like counseling with Yoongi.
Yeah. Yeah.
Hmm.
And but
And I think
doesn't that go along with what you just said? That's his
yeah,
way of giving back his love.
exactly, yeah. Hmm. Okay,
I
so what else
love.
do you have?
I just
I
love him.
know. I love him
The more we
so much.
talk about him, the more I love him. Okay,
I know.
let me change this up and I want to talk about his talents because I think he is very talented. I love the running gag that he calls himself a genius. His studio is called Genius Labs, and
Mhm.
I love that he just is so confident about all of that. But
Yeah,
like
he's like, I own it. I'm a genius.
yeah, but like specifically his love for the piano and his ability to play, I think is phenomenal. I love it so much. Um,
And the
I
way he creates music, like when you see his screens and like all of the equipment that he has and everything like that, it blows my mind and
He's
the
so
amount that he
funny
does it.
with his obsession with like little gadgets and whenever they
Yeah.
go somewhere new he's like, can I get some new equipment? I
Hmm.
don't, like they showed all those things like they were in New York and he like went to the store to buy stuff. I'm like,
Yes.
well, now who's in charge of shipping that around with you? You still have to be on tour. Or
Yeah, and
like,
he
did you
just
have
gets so
room in your
excited.
suitcase? Yeah,
Hmm.
yeah. But like, So there's like a short clip somewhere of him playing the piano version of I Need You. I
Hmm.
love that so much, and I haven't
Me
found,
too.
like, there's no full version of it, right?
No, because it was an advert, I think.
I want it. Like, I really badly want it. I feel so much of him in that music, and I think it's such a beautiful arrangement. I want it, and
And
I also want the piano score so I can learn how to play it on the piano because I would just die.
do you remember that time as well when JK went into his studio and was like filming him and he just started playing the piano and JK was like, "Oh, is that freestyle?" And he was like, "Yeah, it's freestyle." I can literally hear it in my head, the thing that he played, and it was just so full of emotion and I can't explain with words very well what his music is, but there it's like it has a soul of its own. Like it radiates emotion in the way the notes are put together and
Yes.
when he raps in the way that he delivers his vocals and just everything about it. It's like he creates a living thing and like gives it to you.
Yeah, and you know
It's
why?
amazing.
I think I think the reason he is so good at expressing himself through music is because in all of the struggles and all the things that he went through, it feels like music was his only outlet.
Yes.
So he honed his ability to express
Hmm.
himself through the
Yeah.
just the music he makes, and that's why I think when we listen to his stuff, it's so poignant and we react to it so
Hmm.
strongly. Um,
Yeah, and I think like when I first heard First Love, that song made me cry so much because it was so
really.
relatable and yeah, like I couldn't stop crying because
Hmm.
it it reminded me a lot of like how when you feel alone and you just have that one thing and as a musician myself, I felt the same way when you had no one but you had music and I just felt it so powerfully through his tone and the way he structured that piece of music and it's one of my favorites of his but I mean I love all of his music a lot. I can't wait
Mm-hmm.
for his new mixtape. It's going to be so good.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I have a confession about that song, First Love. I did
Hmm.
not like it in the beginning because I didn't like when I looked up the lyrics, I didn't like how it made me feel because I also play the piano nowhere near as good as he does. But for
Hmm.
many years, I it was like a very big part of my life, and I didn't like that he was poking at that feeling of
Hmm.
like, hey, I gave this up. Like you were like my first love. I was obsessed with the piano, and like now I don't do it as much anymore. And I'm like,
Hmm.
stop. I feel personally attacked, and I don't like how honest and painful this
Hmm.
song is. So for a very long time, I couldn't listen to that song.
I think that makes a lot of sense, honestly. And I think the reason I enjoyed it so much and it spoke to me so much is because when I first heard it, I'd been through a period of about 4 years before I found BTS where I couldn't listen to music. And like I went through a really hard time and then I just couldn't listen to music. I wouldn't do it. I wouldn't listen to it. And music had been my whole life. Like but it just had become something which made me feel too many things that I didn't want to feel.
For
And
four
then I
years?
rediscovered, yeah, it was
Wow.
bad.
Wow.
Yeah. But I rediscovered music when I found BTS and I rediscovered my love for it and I started playing my instruments again and I started writing again and then I heard First Love. And the thing I love about it so much is that he's saying that like you were everything to me and you were my best friend and you were beside me through everything and then I gave you up because I couldn't deal with it anymore and then I came back to you and you re-embraced me like no time had passed and I had the exact same experience which is why I
Wow.
think it hit me on such a personal level and why I just
Mm-hmm.
love it so much but yeah
Hmm.
that was a tangent.
Yeah. Well, I'm not switching screens. I don't want this to break. We've been doing good for like an hour now.
Mhm. But I think The thing you should take from it is that he says that the piano is saying, "Don't worry about me. Like, you do your thing, and if you ever want to come back to me, I'm here." So there you go.
Yeah. I don't like that he's so deep. It's so painful.
It is so painful. Like, it forces you to, like, I don't know about you, but like when I'm feeling bad, I'll just shut off my emotions and not want to feel anything. But his music is the type of music that's like, no, you're gonna feel something. I'm gonna rip you apart, and then I'm gonna slowly put you back together. So
You're
just
gonna
deal
learn
with it.
from this, so enjoy
Hmm.
it and
Yeah,
find a solution. You're like, okay.
yeah. But it works. It works every time. And then he has songs like Sugar's Interlude and, those ones that are just like like the stars you asked for are only bright in the darkest of nights and
He's
just
so
all those
poetic.
things.
What? Where does he
Poetic.
get off being so poetic?
I know. And it's just so like his lyrics are so inspiring and just motivational. Yeah, his music is phenomenal, and his producing as well. His producing is fantastic. I adore the song he wrote for. Is it Hazy? Is that how you pronounce it, or is it
Hi,
Highs?
Heisa? I don't know.
I'm
I
not
don't know.
sure, but I absolutely adore that song, and I just love his beats that he makes. They're great.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Um, I, s- I still think about that one time on that one random like variety show where they went on where he tried to give the hosts his like a beat, a song that he had produced, and they just shit all over it and wouldn't take it and like humiliated him on
Wait,
that
I
show.
don't know about this.
Oh, it's painful. I don't
Yeah, I
if
don't
you
know.
want to hurt. Yeah, it's like it's that one Korean show. I don't remember what it's called, but it's like two guys who lead
I know
it.
what you're talking about. I specifically didn't watch it because I heard how horrible they were to Yoongi and I didn't want to.
Yeah, and like that was the thing, right? Where like in the beginning, no one liked BTS
Yeah.
predominantly didn't like them in Korean and like in Korea and ridiculed them. And so I think
Yeah.
that was the idea of like, well, let's have this group come on the show and we'll make fun of them and everybody at home can laugh with us about how ridiculous they are.
Yeah.
And everybody forgot that these were young men in their formative years who were inexperienced in the industry and were being torn apart and abused like
Yeah.
by these adults and being and
Mm.
kind of like dehumanized. And I just
Yeah.
remember Yoongi tried. He's like, "Hey, I brought this beat. I wanted to give it to you as a gift." And they played it for the two guys, and the guys were like, "This isn't really my thing. You really want to give this to me? Like, where would we fit this in with our music?" And Yoongi's just like, just have it, it's for you. And he was trying to like be very nice about it, and they were like, no, and they just shat all over it. And now he is he is a performer on the world stage, and everybody
Oh,
wants to
do you know
produce
how
with him.
angry that makes me? Honestly, like that makes me want to go kill someone.
Preferably those two people, but
Yeah,
not
like
really.
I'm not even kidding. I just felt such a burning rage come over me when you were telling me that story. And that is precisely why I haven't watched that show.
Sorry
So
I made you
thank
live it.
you. Yeah.
Sorry. But like,
Anyway,
but you know that feeling? I think you and I have talked about this before. I think Yoongi has an inner rage at all of these things that have happened to him, that he had to
yeah.
suffer through, that he had to, and a lot of times he had to have a nice face on, even if internally he just wanted to, scream and rage and break things. And that's why I think he's so guarded with the rest of his emotions and finds it so difficult to express himself just, between person to person, and finds it so much easier to do through music. And
And I also
also,
think, sorry,
mm,
you go.
I was just gonna say, and the other thing is I think that's why he has such a hunger and greed for success, because when you
Yes.
get shit on so much, of course you want to prove everyone wrong, especially when you know
Hmm.
you are that good. Um, and that's
Yeah.
why I think, like, he says it all the time. He sang about it and rapped about it in Shadow, that like he has this hunger, this drive, and he's greedy. He wants it all. He wants to be absolutely the best so that there's absolutely no dispute. But even as he tries to accomplish all of that, it's never enough, right? It's a toxic mindset, even that though at the same time it's so empowering to know that you are so good and so successful that nobody can prove you wrong.
Sometimes it gets to the point if you have that drive, and I can be like that too sometimes, where it just takes over your life and you don't even feel human anymore because all you can think about is that rage and that need to win and to prove everybody wrong. And when that happens, like you catch yourself all of a sudden and you're like, I don't even know who I am right now. Like this isn't even me anymore. I'm just this walking, talking, like machine who's just trying to win and demolish everything. And you can tell that he has a hard time between these different sides of himself. But what I was going to say is that I think that's also why he created August D as another side of him that can represent his inner rage and his turmoil and all of these big emotions that he doesn't know how to control.
I have a comment on that. Kind of a tangent, but have you noticed that he places a lot of significance on names? You know, like I love that. Like his own name, Suga. You know, it's supposed to be short for shooting guard because that was the position he played in basketball. And basketball has an incredibly large meaning for him in his life and his identity. And he took that and made that his, stage persona for BTS. And then and then August D is the flip side of that. Plus his roots. You know, the Daegu town is the DT. And I just love that he took the time to make sure that his identity was in the name. Like there's always, I think a lot, like every culture has like folk tales and fairy tales about like how important the name of something is. And I subscribe to that as well. I think the name of things is very, very important. And I love that, these are just two examples. I wish I had more. I can't think of any more off the top of my head. Can you, like, any other
Well,
ways?
he talks about how he separates Min Yoongi, and he hardly ever calls himself Yoongi when he's on camera. Like, he is very much, I'm in sugar mode right now. Or I'm in Yoongi mode when I'm at home and I'm away from everything. Or I'm in August D mode when I want to get all of my emotions out. Like, I think he very much is like able to separate these different portions of him in order to be kind of like at whole. Because I think when you have all of these different thoughts and feelings whirring around your brain at all times, it becomes hard and you become disjointed because it's too many opposing things going on. But I think he is very, very good at like separating them and being able to cope because of that.
Yeah, I agree. I think that's probably the only way that might help at this point. They talked about it, right? Yeah. In one of their I think
it was in Festa
from 2018, I think, where they were at the dinner party and they were like, how do you separate who you are in your career from who you actually are, and how do you keep one from consuming the other? And both he and Namjoon talked about it, and I just thought it was so very important because mentally, right, you hear about all these celebrities who, especially child stars, who grow up famous and grow up in the spotlight, and they just kind of lose it because they can't handle the box that they've been put in, the parameters that have been placed upon their identity, and they need to act out. they need for it to end.
Yeah, and they have too many opposing feelings. It's like, I'm trying to be one thing, but then all of these other sides are fighting back. And the only way, really, for you to be able to resolve that is by changing how you look at it, changing your perspective. So, for example, when you're feeling all of these warring emotions inside and you have all these different sides to you, because like they've said many times, you're not just one thing, like that is you trying to then go about your daily life in one of them becomes like trying to answer an unanswerable question. But then if you change your perspective and say, well, in this scenario, this version of me is right, and in this scenario, this version of me is right, so there can be multiple different versions of me, then you're much more able to handle all of them at once, and it's just changing your perspective.
Agreed completely. I also like see it as like, you know, you might think you look the best in a ball gown. Like that is the most tricked out you can look, but you wouldn't wear a ball gown to the gym. Like that would be completely impractical. You would still look amazing on that treadmill, but you'd probably also trip and then hit the wall behind you.
And it's like what type of music you listen to depending on what scenario you're in. Like you're not going to listen to a ballad when you're on a run. Like you can change depending on each scenario. But anyway, we've just gone on a massive tangent. But I think that
it's still related.
I think that this is something that I have learned.
I love this picture, by the way. This one that keeps cycling through.
Yeah, it's so good.
So
before we move away from his talents, just a quick pointer. I love how much focus he's been putting on trying to like improve various things right now. Like he's said he's been having singing lessons and he's been working on his dancing and he's been learning English more. And I've just noticed that like he's really trying to hone all of these different skills, which is amazing. And it's really paying off as well. Like he was amazing in this comeback with his dancing, and like his vocals in Shadow sounded amazing. And I'm really proud.
I love Shadow. You're right, because Shadow is such an experimental song. He really stretched himself and tried all these new different things, and I love it. It's just, I'm so proud of his growth. And the fact that he also sings now, yes, please.
Like, if you want my full opinion on this, please go and listen to me talk about Shadow, because I go off about it for a long time. Because it's probably I think it's the best song musically on the album, in my opinion. It's just a work of art. Yeah. Anyway.
Yeah. Okay, so what would this said you wanted to talk about something besides talents, right?
Yes, so I wanted to talk about let me find which thing it was. Excuse my yawn.
While you're looking for that, I just want to make a quick comment. I was like watching Yoongi videos on YouTube, and one of them like had a comment that said, when Yoongi runs, he looks like an old man running back to his house because he forgot his casseroles in the oven.
I actually think that Yoongi is an old man in a young person's body, and this links to my point. So his like little interests and things that he finds enjoyable, like architecture and interior design and putting things together, and like he's a handyman, and I just feel like all of these things that he enjoys doing are so adorable.
Yeah.
And like, yeah. He's so knowledgeable. Like he's the trivia king. Like he always talks about how, like he'll bring up a random fact about like World War II or something. And
yes,
you're like, how do you even know that?
The behind the scenes from one of their comeback shows where he taught everyone about, I don't even remember what it was.
It was a wall of some kind.
Yeah. And it was like, if this is a useless, if someone is talking about this, it means it's useless or something, right?
And he, like on Weverse as well, he said something about, like he'll always correct people. So somebody will say, oh, this is this. And then he comes out with his like big fancy scientific words and he's like, well, actually. and how they always make fun of him for being like, back in my day, or like, his way of viewing his age is just hilarious.
Yeah, I agree. I just think he's also very smart. Like, he's very curious about the world, and I think it maybe comes from a sense of just wanting to know everything that's out there. You know what? This is what I wanted to say. Like the times when they talk about Or like even when he talks about in their like documentaries saying like this is really hard, but I know it's not going to last forever. So every time I want to give up and give in, I don't, because I know this is the last little bit I get before something else happens and I can't do this anymore. And I think along that same thread, he wants to learn everything about the world that he can while he can. Like he's a very YOLO person.
Yeah, definitely. But very much in a down to earth way. Like I'm gonna try all the things, but like if it's stupid, then I'm not gonna do it.
Yeah, agreed.
So we're gonna have to push this along. So what I think we should do for this last however long we have is just to say things off the top of our heads, just without a big discussion about it, about what we like about him. So
okay.
I'll start. I love his speaking voice so much. It's so great. Like I could listen to him talk for hours. It would soothe me to sleep. It's like deep and raspy, and how he always does those like between, and he makes those little like purring noises that he does. He's like always.
Yes, agreed.
I love it.
We agree 100%. I love his relationship with Hobie. Soap is one of my favorite things, because I think it's one of those times when Yoongi publicly admits that he has a weakness, that he needs more energy, and he's like, where is J-Hope? Where's Hobie? I need energy. Like that time they recorded third muster, something like that. And then I also like that just when he's with Hobie, he feels more free to be just like silly and goofy and out there, and it makes for some really funny, stupid moments that are really entertaining to watch.
Honestly, I'm going to quickly just very briefly talk over each of his relationships with the members, because I actually love him with all of them in different ways. So like with Jin, I love how they're just so comfortable around one another. It's just like they could probably sit on opposite ends of the room and feel happy.
They're also very sassy and like snide together, and it's so satisfying.
And then with Namjoon, I just love how much respect they have for each other. But
love that
they
song.
literally, so good. I just feel like they are very much on the same page, and in terms of music creators, I feel like they just bounce off of each other and just are so proud of each other for where they came and where they are now, which I love about them. And then I'm gonna just bracket the Maknae line just together for convenience. But I love his relationship with the Maknae line so much. He's literally like a father figure to them. It's adorable.
And it's his desire to be protective. I think he is very fiercely loyal. Like he's very loyal to the people he cares about, to his family, to his second family of BTS, and to ARMY. He defends us all the time.
Like you don't get let in easily. His affection is hard to earn, but once you've earned it, he will literally like fight to the death for you.
Love it.
Yeah,
I love it.
Okay, so another thing I like about him, I love his gummy smile. It's so cute. Every time I see it, and his little cheeks, like his cheekies, like, that scene when he's got that helmet on and his cheeks are like this, and he's smiling, and it's so cute.
I have no idea what you're talking about, but you are very cute right now.
I will send you that picture as well.
Okay.
Yeah, I think he is probably the most adorable member. I'm gonna put it out there. In my opinion, he's the one that makes me like, the most. Which is funny considering. Like, I also have a lot of respect for him in terms of his like personality and his confidence and like how hardcore he is and how like down to earth he is. But I also just think he's the most adorable thing ever. How he likes his hand held, how he's just like
I can't get over the hand holding. Like of all
Same.
the things that hey, describe this person. He loves holding hands and always thinks that people are trying to hold his hand when they're reaching for the mic, reaching for a water
Mhm.
bottle. And I'm just like,
Oh,
why
it's
is
so
that? Why is
funny.
that your go-to thing? Like, oh, there's a hand moving towards me. They must want to hold
Mhm.
mine. Like,
Mhm.
I love that.
Oh
Like,
my God, it's so adorable. Um, and just moving on from this point, like
keep
I
going.
just
Yeah,
love
go
how
ahead.
when he's in the mood, he just is so silly and playful, and like the little dance he does, his happy dance, the one, this one that he does when he's like happy, and how he makes that little like kind of noise, and
Yes.
he's just when he's feeling positive and feeling bright, he's so playful and it's so cute and adorable. And I also think that he seems so much happier lately. And I
I was
don't know
gonna
how to
say,
just, yeah, like I
yeah.
don't know how to describe it except from like, I wrote it down in my notes that like when I looked at him before, I just felt so much tension from him. And I feel like it's just gone now. He just seems so much more relaxed and just at peace. And it makes me so happy. Like him on Bon Voyage, the season 4, he just seemed so just at ease.
Relaxed.
Yeah.
I think he came to some personal conclusion. I had some kind of perspective shift. It's
Hmm.
something internal that made him feel better. And
Yeah.
that stuff is visible. You can tell
Yes.
when someone's struggling with something, and you can also tell when someone is feeling better and freer and just being sillier and goofier. You can
Yeah.
just see it.
I
You
think
might
my
not know the
guess,
details, but you see it.
hmm yeah. I think my guess would probably be, and this is just completely my idea, so don't take this as fact, but I feel like he's just come to terms with the fact that there are good and bad things to everything. Like, I mean, I think it's through this album, and I've talked before about how I feel like this album was probably so good for them to just revisit the wounds and see how you can have both light and dark, both good and bad, and that rather than pushing it away or trying to fight against it, to just accept it. And I feel like if I was to guess, it would probably be something like that I feel like has changed. Like, it's not a fight
Maybe.
anymore.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
yeah, that's just a guess.
No, I agree. I think that is a very therapeutic exercise.
Just one last thing about Yoongi before we say our goodbyes, and that is that I had a lovely message from a dear Army this week. Her childhood cat that she'd had for a long time passed away, and she was going through a hard time, and so everybody send her your love. But she messaged me to write about Yoongi to kind of distract herself from what was going on, and because he's her bias, and she said that he helped her a lot, and she sent me a beautiful, lovely paragraph, and I told her that was amazing, and I almost cried, but I can't
Oh,
read the whole thing when
wait, I want to
I
hear it.
present this. I, I
Oh,
I can't read the whole thing. It's too long. Plus, I haven't asked her permission for me to, and it's quite personal, so I wouldn't want to
oh, okay.
do that
That makes
anyway.
sense.
But
Yeah, yeah.
but I did ask her to send me a sentence that I could read out, and she said it was very difficult, but she put together a lovely sentence for me, and I am going to read it now. So
Go
she
for it.
said. For me, he is a shelter from the storm, a lighthouse guiding me on my path to find inner peace, a calming presence when I feel like I'm drowning in self-doubt, a boost of energy when I feel like giving up, and a constant reminder that it's okay to feel sad, lost, or lonely sometimes, but I need to keep going because even baby steps will surely lead me to somewhere someday.
That's
Yeah.
beautiful. Oh my God. She's a
Mhm.
poet.
I know.
That's
It
so
was so
beautiful.
beautiful. I told you, I had tears in my eyes, and I am with you. And thank you so much for messaging me. And
Wow.
honestly, if anybody ever wants to message me about BTS, my DMs are open. So, yes.
That is
Thank you
amazing.
again.
Love it.
Yeah.
하고 싶은 게 없다는 게 진짜 뭐 같은데 흔한 꿈조차 없다는 게 한심한 거 알아 다른데 하란 대로만 하면 된다면 대학 가면 다 괜찮아 그런 말들은 믿은 내가 병신이지 나 죽지 못해 살아 술이나 좀 줘봐 오늘은 취하고 싶으니 제발 말르지마 뭐든 좋아 백수 새끼가 술 마시는 건 사실이지만 취하지도 않은 버틸 수가 없어 모두가 달리는데 왜 나만 여기 있어 모두가 달리는데 왜 나만 여기 있어 모두가 달리는데 왜 나만 여기 있어
So far away 나에게도 꿈이 있다면 날아가는 꿈이 있다면 Don't fly away 나에게도 꿈이 있다면 날아가는 꿈이 있다면
그대의 창조와 삶의 끝을 함께하길 Dream 그대의 자리가 어딜지라도 관대하리 Dream 결국 실현의 끝에 만개하리 Dream 시작은 미약할지언정 끝은 창대하리 그래 시발 죽지 못해서 살아 하고 싶은 게 없단 건 말이야 무엇보다 외로운데 주변에선 하나같이 정신 차려 란 말뿐이네 화풀이해 상대는 뭐 나뿐인데 뭘 화풀이해 매일 아침에 눈 뜨는 게 숨 쉬는 게 친구와 가족조차 멀어져만 가네 시간이 흐르면 흐를수록 더 조급하네 나 혼자인 기분 나 혼자인 지금 모든 게 사라졌음에 신기루처럼 사라졌음에 이젠 빌어먹을 나조차도 사라졌음에 이렇게 세상에 나 버려지네 그 순간 하늘과 멀어지네 떨어지네
So far away 나에게도 꿈이 있다면 날아가는 꿈이 있다면 Don't fly away 나에게도 꿈이 있다면 날아가는 꿈이 있다면
그대의 창조와 삶의 끝을 함께하길 Dream 그대의 자리가 어딜지라도 관대하리 Dream 결국 실현의 끝에 만개하리 Dream 시작은 미약할지언정 끝은 창대하리
So far away 나에게도 꿈이 있다면 날아가는 꿈이 있다면 Don't fly away 나에게도 꿈이 있다면 날아가는 꿈이 있다면
그대의 창조와 삶의 끝을 함께하길 Dream 그대의 자리가 어딜지라도 관대하리 Dream 결국 실현의 끝에 만개하리 Dream 시작은 미약할지언정 끝은 창대하리 그대의 창조와 삶의 끝을 함께하리
Don't fly away
그대의 자리가 어딜지라도 관대하리 결국 실현의 끝에 만개하리 시작은 미약할지언정 끝은 창대하리 끝에 함께하길 Dream 그대의 자리가 어딜지라도 관대하리 Dream 결국 실현의 끝이 만개하리 Dream 시작은 미약할지 언제 끝은 창대하리 Dream